Hey Element, we hope you had a very happy Thanksgiving. We took the week off, so we're not coming with a new episode of Talking Element this week, but we will be back next week. In the meantime, enjoy this episode of The Cutting Room Floor.
You want to see me actually as a tender person? Get me around my mom, you know, because
that's why you bring her to church.
That's why I bring her to church.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
I find that a lot of people, Christians, there's a few things in our lives we feel like we never do enough of. One of them is prayer, reading the Bible, being kind enough, giving. We all have all of these things. Whenever somebody asks about prayer, it's like, oh, I'm never doing enough. And that's probably true in one sense.
But he also says if you're not willing to, you know, pick up your cross and die with me, that's part of what we're talking about. Mm-hmm. You know, but it's great to have friends that put you in your place when you think that you're self-righteous doing it. Yeah.
Or at least a young guy who shows up out of nowhere and does it.
Yeah, why is it the youngest dude? Like culturally,
got the most zeal, man.
Right, I guess so, right?
Or maybe sometimes when you have gotten mad at me and I'm like, I need to run away.
Not very many people have actually seen that. Like, well, since I got saved, right? I mean, Aaron and Mike are probably one of the few. And they've had it in their mind ever since. It's scary, yeah.
We did, because the one time, and we looked at each other and went, woo! And then I went outside to hug you and make sure you're okay.
Yeah. Well, sorry about that.
You've said that multiple times to me at this point.
I know. I don't know if I said it. Sorry.
I'm sorry for you thinking that I was going to say
it was all directed at him. So.
Yeah, it was all directed at me. Yeah, so we got it.
Deserve it. No, I'm just playing.
That was a rough day.
That was a rough day.
Yeah.
That was a rough week.
Yeah.
That's actually a rough couple months.
Yeah.
With your dad and all that.
Yeah.
So. You know, interesting thing about that?
Yeah.
When Paul says, for we are God's workmanship created in Christ Jesus to do good works, the word there that is used in the Greek is where we get our word poem from.
Our word what?
Poem from.
Poem.
Yeah. So we are created kind of to be God's work of art by the things he calls us to do and how he calls us to live.
And that takes me back to the really, and we thought we were done. That really takes me back to the quote from the first week of Talking Element about the trees, that we are to, as believers, we are to take in the carbon monoxide and expel oxygen. And really, I think that goes in hand with the poem thought of our lives are to be different, and we are to bring goodness and God's glory in the midst of all things. And so, hopefully during COVID, even though it feels
like it's going on way too long.
Like it's going, well, not even that, but it feels just oppressive now, that we can be the oxygen in the room, and that we can speak of God's goodness and God's glory.
One of the things I thought of this morning as I was doing the Lent journal, or not the journal, doing the Lent readings, Job wasn't privy to the conversation between Satan and the accuser and God.
Right.
And we have that vantage point that he didn't have, and it's like, oh, he's not aware of this going on.
Right, and so he's making judgments of where he is, but we're also making judgments about the conversation and about what God should have done and why did God do this. And so he's got a view, but we, from our cultural perspective, maybe have an improper view of that as well.
Right, we see it differently.
Yeah. So, talking about Job, the next week I kind of go with this in the message too. I talk because his next friend, this week I talk about the empty platitudes, because that's what Eliphaz shows up with. It's just these empty platitudes. And so I talk about empty platitudes, which I don't spend a lot of time in Job, just empty. Anyway. But next week, we're talking about his next friend who shows up, and it's all about morality. If you did this, then God would do that, and if you did this, then God would do that. And it's a skewed view, again, of who God is. My friend Brad used to say that. My friend Brad. So my nephew has his own platitude that he says. So he works and does electronic stuff for this company, but he goes, every time I put something together, he goes, and I got to plug it in, I sit there and I say, God hates a coward. And he plugs it in.
You know, the one that bugs me more than anything that I hear people say now is fair enough. I can't stand that statement. Like, as if like they're the ones who are the moral high ground and decision to make that. You're putting yourself in the place of God to say what's fair. Only God says what's good and fair.
I hate
Right?
that. I hate
Fair
that.
enough.
All roads.